The phone on a 911 console does not ring. It detonates. It cuts through whatever you were thinking and leaves everything vibrating, like a tuning fork pressed to your bones. Nights on the floor are mostly paperwork and coffee gone cold, and then suddenly it is someone's worst minute, dropped into your hands, slick with panic. People think the scariest part is the screaming. It is not. It is the seconds after the screaming stops, when all you can hear is your own breath and the thump of your heart in your headset. I worked dispatch for 8 years. Nights, weekends, snowstorms, holidays. Birthdays that turned into obituaries. Laughter that curdled into fear. There are hundreds of calls I handled that I can recall in pieces, like photographs left in the rain. But there are 5 I can still hear in the dark. They arrive uninvited when the house is quiet and the fridge hum becomes an ocean. They play back in the theater behind my eyes with perfect sound. In each one there is something I could not say at the time. A truth that would have made the line go dead. The first was a whisper in the vents. The line connected to a breathing so shallow I thought the call had dropped. Then a voice, high and frayed. "He is in the house." I kept my own voice flat and warm. "Name, address, is there anyone with you?" She said she was 9. She said she was alone. She spelled the street with the patience of a child tracing letters on a poster. Collins. I could see the map in my head before it loaded on the screen, the way you learn a city by its emergencies. A grid of ordinary nights with a handful of burning squares. "I want you to listen to me," I said, and I gave her something to do, because panic loves empty hands. I told her to take the phone, slip into a closet, and pull clothes down on top of her. I told her to cover the blue light on the screen with her palm. I told her to breathe with me, slow and quiet, like blowing out a birthday candle you want to save for later. I watched the CAD populate, units rolling, patrol 2 minutes out if lights hit green. The call timer marched forward, a red digit scything seconds. Then the sound that still finds me. Not a footstep, not a door. A shift in the house like a room inhaling. The girl whispered that the vents were humming, that sometimes when the heat came on the voice came with it. I asked her to tell me what she heard. "It says my name," she breathed, and when she said it the audio clipped. A soft pop like the microphone flinched. I told her help was almost there. I told her to stay with me. There was a soft scrape, fabric against plastic, and a click that could have been a doorknob. Patrol called that they were on the street. I asked them to kill sirens half a block out, because noise spooks cowards. The girl started to cry without sound, the way kids do when they are beyond tears. I could hear the vents again, a low animal note. There is always a moment where you want to speak as yourself and not as the job. I wanted to tell her that monsters like to pretend they are wind, that naming them makes them human and small. Instead, I asked her what room the closet was in. She said, "My mom's." The door below opened. I knew it from the way the house echoed into the phone. A colder air under her whisper. One of my units whispered back to me on the secondary. Side door, muddy prints, bedroom lights off. The timeline got very small then. Every second had a shape. The girl pulled a sleeve down over the phone. My own screen flickered with the room layout I built in my head. Hallway, stairs, landing, master to the left, closet behind the mirror. I told her to hold the clothing over her face and count breaths in her head. The officer's radio went to static, a harsh zippering that meant bodies moving and boots careful. Then, far away on the line, a man said a word that was not a name. He said it like a password to the dark. The girl flinched and the phone rustled. Time did the thing where it tears. I do not remember my own voice, only the shape of it. I heard the vent hum rise, felt the room in my own lungs. Then a new sound, 3 knocks, firm and even. "Police," a voice said, and the house exhaled. I never learned the word the man said. I never learned if the hum in the vents was in the ducts or in her head. But I remember the silence after the officers took her outside to the cruiser. The faint whistle as the phone adjusted to the absence of terror. People imagine endings as sirens and handcuffs. Most endings are just the long, slow return of ordinary sounds. That night, off the call, I walked to the break room and found my coffee still waiting. A thin skin across the surface. trembled when I picked it up. The second call did not scream either. It rolled in low, CB radio rumble under a calm voice. A trucker on the interstate, mile marker 261, reporting a girl in white standing at the shoulder. I heard the way he kept checking his mirrors with his mouth, a pause every 7 seconds. He said she wasn't waving. She was listening, head turned like she could hear something in the field. He kept saying the mile marker, as if numbers could make it less strange. The wind on his line kept rising. Do not stop for her, I said. Not on the shoulder and not in a live lane. Keep your flashers on and your speed steady. Can you confirm the clothes? White dress, he said, or a long shirt, soaked to the knees, hair stringy like it had been combed with rain. I patched State Patrol and tagged DOT cameras westbound. The lens at 260 was a dark smear, but 262 showed wet lanes, wire fences, and a smear of taillights bending left. He kept talking like a man who did not want to hear himself think. There is a ramp at 259, I said. Loop there and get back behind her with distance. Tell me if she moves. Another voice cut in on the background, a second driver on the CB, tin can distorted. He had seen her too. She never looked at the trucks, he said. She had her ear turned to the field like it was telling a secret. The wind built big winter miles, turning the cab into a drum. I could hear his wipers, a steady morse of rubber and grit. State called that a trooper was merging at 260 to run a welfare check. Do not attempt contact, I told the trucker again, and he laughed a little, like contact was a word for astronauts and ghosts. On the camera at 261, the shoulder had that long wet gleam that makes everything look like a body until it is not. The trooper's dash cam pushed a cone of light through the rain. No girl. The trucker said she was still there for him, 50 yards behind the cruiser, dress stuck to her shins, head cocked as if she could hear a station no one else could tune. Then she stepped without looking, a half pace into the lane, and every voice on the air sucked in. The trooper braked and drifted right. My driver kept steady as ordered, and when the camera parallaxed just so, the shoulder became only shoulder again. Nobody hit anyone because nobody was there. The trooper walked the gravel anyway. His flashlight showed 2 sets of prints pressed into the wet stones. Small bare feet and, beside them, a longer ripple as if someone had dragged a hose. They ended at the rail. Below the drop, weeds shivered and a culvert gurgled its blind song. We logged the check complete. An hour later the same driver came back on the line, voice small now that the road was big again. She is at 274, he said. Same stance. Still listening. Some calls end without an ending. The sound just keeps going after you hang up. The third call is weather, but not the kind you see on radar. Spring had come early, and then all at once it remembered it was cruel. Sirens layered the county. The phones lit like a brush fire. One line landed in my ear with the clatter of a door and the hollow of a basement. A man counted heads as if they were beads. 2 kids, 1 dog, wife, radio. He said the house was old enough to remember coal. I asked for his address and it came with a tremor, the vowels rattled by a siren passing above. Get under the beam, I said. Cover your heads with what you have. Do not open the door unless you feel heat. He let me hear the room. There is a music to storms that you only understand from concrete. The dog sneezed. Somewhere a ceramic thing slid and broke. The radio begged them to go to an interior room they no longer had. He asked me if he should sing. Yes, I said, sing whatever you remember. He started a lullaby that began as a joke and turned sincere by the second line. I counted his breathing between the notes. When the wind arrived it sounded like a throat clearing for a speech the sky was about to give. The line picked up grit and the timbre went thin. Everybody got very quiet except the world. He said they could feel the house change its mind. The dog made a sound I have only heard twice. A rope pulled tight around breath. Then something took the roof like a lid to see what was inside. The scream was not human, and it did not come from a person. It was pressure looking for a smaller room. The call went to a tone and back. He was still singing, but now it was only the rhythm the words carried off. I kept him there with me, breathing together, counting to 4 and then to 8, while units tried to steer through a street grid made of branches and wire. After, he told me the beam was still above them and the house was not. Sometimes survival sounds like an argument with physics. We never met, but I still know his lullaby by heart. The fourth call asked for a different voice than the one we use with children in storms. It came at 3:11 a.m. A man who did not give his name and did not sound drunk or high. He asked how long it would take for someone to get to a parking lot if he told me which one. I asked if he needed an ambulance. He said no, and then he said, I cannot make my head stop and I think I might do something again. We have scripts for this, but scripts are only scaffolds when a person begins to tell you the shape of their harm. I took his location and sent cars low profile, no lights, and kept him on the line with questions that were really ropes. Had he hurt anyone tonight? No. Before tonight. He breathed through his nose, like a swimmer who has to focus. He said, I stand next to people and they do not know it is dangerous to be that close to me. Units closed in quiet. He described the lot like a map he wanted to fold smaller. 3 lamps buzzed. A loading dock hummed. A cart wrangler circled. Hands on the wheel, I said. Doors unlocked. Engine off. Name what you see until the letters feel silly. What do you have with you? He swallowed and said rope. The cruisers ghosted in, angles across the asphalt. He said the pictures in his head were impatient. They wanted him to test doors, to measure a throat with his hand. You are not your pictures, I said. For 60 seconds, notice colors. Smells, the flicker in the 4th bulb. He said the cart handle was red. Will you stay when they arrive, he asked. Yes, I said, I am here. One officer took his elbow. Another cleared the passenger seat. He sobbed in 2 short barks. Do not be brave, I told him, be honest. Am I a monster, he asked. Not tonight, I said. Tonight you asked for help. Later a detective said there was rope in the trunk, coiled like a plan. I woke with both hands sore from making fists. The 5th call never spoke. An open line sounded like a pocket. Cloth, keys, breath and pavement. Chain link rattled. A metal door clanged forward. I announced 911 for the record and listened to the air. Silence has tells, echo, rhythm, a train you do not see but feel. Phase 2 narrowed the towers to the old depot. City cameras bloomed into rectangles of night, loading dock, stairwell, a doorway mostly shadow. Somewhere inside, a shoe squeaked and the phone grazed a wall. Units took the perimeter. If you can hear me, keep moving and do not talk, I said. Just breathe. 2 officers slid into the stairwell. The line filled with the train, then an impact I felt in my teeth. A door flew. The screen caught blue and yellow blur. The call died, then came back with one wet inhale. He was there, choking and not alone. They pulled him out into rain and lights. Some calls are saved by geography, some by luck, most by the refusal to hang up. I still hear them when the house is quiet. Not the screams. The long return of ordinary sound. The fridge hum, the heater tick, the neighbor's dog sigh, and somewhere in it a child's whisper, a trucker's radio, a lullaby under concrete, a man choosing help, and a breath at the bottom of a stair. People imagine that fear lives in screams, but it really lives in the space right after, when you are deciding what to do next. That space is a room with a single chair and a phone that does not ring so much as split the air. You sit, you breathe, you lend your nervous system to a stranger until the world stops shaking. You do it again, and 5 of them come home with you and refuse to be quiet. I answer anyway, always.